The award that, at least across social media, has had the most debate throughout the year, with Luka and Tatum being in the conversation at points in time. Now, of course, it being Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid as the three front runners, and cases being made for all three of them. We will start with Gabe. Who is your pick for the 2022-23 MVP?
We know his pick.
No, you don't. You don't know my pick.
We know his pick.
Hey man, this is some great content for a nice YouTube short. Who is your pick? Oh man, you don't have to put me in this tough of a position, man. I'm happy I'm not a voter. I think all three guys have a great case. Giannis has the best team record. He's the best player in the league. He's been playing without his second best player for like half the season. A lot of good things there. I would probably say the best defender out of these guys. You know, you might argue like center position has inherently more defensive value. So I think there could be an argument for Embiid, but I think Giannis is the best defender out of the three guys. Unstoppable on offense as usual. And then you come over to Jokic. Near triple-double, piloting this Nuggets team single-handedly to the 1 seed in the Western Conference, a Western Conference that has a lot of teams that have been really competitive, really up and down. The Nuggets have been that model of consistency, even if the guys around Jokic aren't always the most consistent themselves. It's been him and what he does in his production that has kept him in his spot, as it has for the last 2+ years. And then you go over to Embiid. Team is the 3 seed, but pretty much just as good as the Nuggets. At the time of recording, I think the Nuggets are just a hair better, but all things considered, around the exact same record. But Embiid is probably, and by probably definitely, more impactful on the defensive end than Jokic is. I believe the Sixers are a better defense overall, but I do think that the Nuggets' defense is a bit more exposable. I just don't think it'll hold up as much in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, this is a regular season award, so I don't even know if that matters. However, as far as defensive impact, I'm going to go Embiid over Jokic, and I just think they both have a better case than Giannis this year. And then on the offensive end, it keeps it so close because Jokic's playmaking is so good, but Embiid is just unstoppable. And no matter how close it gets, I just maintain the whole time. I think that this is Embiid's award, man. I think that this is Joel Embiid, and I want to stay consistent. I've been on the Embiid train for weeks, and it's just you look at the things he's doing, scoring in any facet of the game, whether that's inside with his post moves, his ability to get to the line, which people hate on, but is super impressive. His ability to just do things at all stages of the game. He can get outside of the paint and he can get you some buckets. He does it all. He's there in the hustle stats as well. His games played are up from what they've ever been before. Anything that held him back in the past, I think he's really just taken care of in his game this season. And this Sixers team is set up to be really successful as they go into the postseason. And just the basketball he's played, the moments he's had, some of the stat lines he's put up, it's his time. It's so close. You're going to have to nitpick really hard to choose your guy. And I just think Embiid has the least amount of nitpicking to be done this year. I think you can say Jokic has had moments where other teams just attack the paint and they're just done. They're just cooked. That defense, they just all of a sudden just look very human and very beatable. I don't think the Sixers have been exposed that heavily this season. And then Giannis, I feel like his name almost just got taken out of the conversation immediately because he's almost above it. But he has had some small stretches this season where he looked a bit human as well. I feel like Embiid has maintained that whole season just looking absolutely incredible. And when it gets as close as it is, I mean, that's my guy. That's my guy.
Your last point is really what separates everybody from me. Because Giannis did have those stretches where he looked kind of pedestrian for Giannis's standards. Like he wasn't getting the 35. and 15 rebound games like we're used to him getting. He had some games where he's scoring single digits. Like he had some like 2 or 3 week stretch where he looked very normal. And Jokic had a stretch late in the season where he looked very normal too. And I feel like Embiid has just gotten better and better and better and better as the season has gone on. And the Sixers' success correlates with that, leading the league in scoring, averaging a double-double. His offensive dominance is second to none in the league, obviously being the leading scorer. But nobody can stop him when he's really just locked in, engaged. And that's why he goes through stretches where we have these conversations like he looks like the best player in basketball because he's just that dominant offensively. And maybe I'm falling victim to some voter fatigue or whatever. I don't know. I just can't really find a word where I can give it to Jokic again. Even though the Nuggets have been best in the West this season, we've had these conversations like we don't really believe in them that much. Even though they're the best team record-wise, we don't think their dominance is right there. And it's like last season, my argument for Jokic was, well, yeah, he's like the 6th seed, but he only has like a game less in the win column than the 76ers did. It's pretty much flip-flop this season. I got to stay consistent with that because Philly's like a game and a half worse than Denver right now. And Embiid's been so good. He's been pretty available this season, even though Harden's missed a decent amount of time this season. Tyrese Maxey's missed a decent amount of time this season. And I made those arguments for Jokic last year when his guys were out. Joel Embiid's second and third best players have missed a lot of time too, but Embiid has been that constant force that has been there. And he's my MVP, and I think he really deserves it. I don't think it's a pity thing, like a here, take it, damn it, finally get your award. I think he really deserves the MVP this year.
Yeah, I would concur with both of you there. I think this is Embiid's award this year. He's just been the most impactful player in all facets of the game. And that's no knock on Jokic and Giannis, because there is a legit argument for all 3 of those guys to win MVP this year. And that's completely fair. They all have legit MVP cases and have all had legit MVP seasons. And shout out to Super Mario Hoops in the chat. He's just mentioned that he has Jokic for MVP this year. And it's like, I can have a debate and a conversation about Jokic versus Embiid, but fair play if you want Jokic to win the MVP because he's had an MVP caliber season, and the same can be said for Giannis. There's just 3 dudes who've been absolutely dominant this season. But Joel's just been that hair above for me and evidently all 3 of us this year. And I will admit my bias in that I do like myself a center who can defend the rim very well. And as great as Jokic is offensively, he's obviously not that on the defensive end. And hence why I haven't been as quick to pick Jokic for MVP awards over the last couple of years. But Jokic deserves all the love in the world, despite any defensive concerns he may have. He is going to be one of the best offensive bigs to ever play the game hundreds of years from now. And that is just undoubtable, regardless of how many MVPs he wins from here on out. And he's had another great year this year. But Joel's put together arguably the best season of his career and continues to be a big reason why Philly have been so good. And like you say, Tyrik, he's had guys, his key guys in and out of the lineup this year throughout the early and mid part of the year. And that's the argument that Jokic had on his side last year. So it's only fair we give that to Embiid this year. But any 3 of these guys are valid MVP candidates in any other given year. Unfortunately, they're just in an era now where there's 3 of them that are all competing for MVP every single year. And it's probably not going to change anytime soon. If anything, there's just going to be more guys joining the conversation in years to come.
You know, I really do think it just speaks a lot to the model of consistency and people's criteria. Like, apparently we should have had Super Mario on this week because he has a different take than us, so it could have been a little bit more banter. But I think that point of like, oh, I take Jokic this year, but I take Embiid last year. Yeah, honestly, there are cases of sort of flip-flop from last year to this year. And so if you were somebody that had Embiid last year, I can see why you'd have Jokic this year. And for us, I think our criteria is a little bit different, so it changed what our pick was. Now, I had Giannis last year, so I'm not even that sort of flip-flop. However, I do think that had Giannis not been there, I probably would have been Embiid over Jokic last year. I don't know, though, man. It's really close, and it's always splitting hairs, and it's like I can't go directly into where my mind was a year ago, especially because that third guy's case was – but this year, just looking at the 2 of them side by side, Embiid's done just enough to kind of take it for me. And as much as I hate to say it, when you're a former MVP, I do think you kind of have to exceed your previous MVP season to get another one. That's just kind of always been the precedent. That's sort of always been the bar set. To get multiple MVPs, you have to pass and show me something special. And Jokic is close to that. He's done some things that could give you that argument and that say so. They're a 1 seed, which is something he hasn't done. And while I don't think he's going to end up securing the triple-double average, being that close, I mean, you can just say, yeah, he averaged damn near a triple-double. And if you just straight up said to me he averaged a triple-double, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to be that guy that's like, well, actually, he averaged 9 points. Like, come on, man. He averaged a triple-double, basically. And so
what kind of sucks, though, is like – it's like all these guys have kind of had like the best seasons of their career. It's just like, Gabe, you mentioned it earlier, you kind of got a split hair somewhere. And it's just like, I feel like I had the least questions about Embiid's case out of these 3. Like, I mean, we just saw they just did a straw poll, I think, last week. And it's like Embiid was the leader, but it was by like 2 points in the votes. So it's like, it's probably going to come right down to the wire. Like, it might be the closest MVP race that we've witnessed in our lifetime.
Jokic had more first-place votes in that straw poll as well.
Which is it's crazy. I mean, we know how, like, I think we've seen voters, their criteria, how they kind of weigh things. I think they definitely value advanced stats a lot because they're probably not watching every game, so they're relying on those advanced stats to kind of, like, even that playing field a little bit. I wouldn't say it's like a runaway for me, but in my mind, I just feel like Embiid has the strongest case out of everybody. But I agree with Super Mario. He said he wouldn't be mad if either one of these guys won the award, and I kind of agree with that. Like we mentioned, you can make a case for everyone, and that could be a very compelling case. It's really just who you prefer and who you just think's had the better season, which is a very tough one to call.
Definitely. All 3 are deserving. And as Super Mario's also mentioned too, like Chris Middleton missed a ton of time too, and that could also be considered in Giannis's case as well. But at the end of the day, these guys just continue to be at the top of the league, and I don't see any of them slowing down anytime soon. They're all in their prime and not getting out of it anytime soon. They're only going to be joined by the likes of Jason Tatum, by the likes of Luka Doncic, and whoever else makes that jump over the next couple of years. So there's going to be a lot of fun MVP debates over the next few years, assuming everyone stays healthy, because there's a lot of top-end talent in the league right now that are going to be having MVP caliber seasons. I mean, even though he's not in this conversation, a big part of it is just due to the recent performances and the lack of regular season success. But individually, Luka Doncic has been good enough statistically to be in this conversation as well this year. He's just not getting it because this Mavericks team isn't good enough. Part of that's on him, but a large part of it is due to the front office. And he's just not being mentioned. But he's been that good this year, and that's just the level of talent there is at the top end in the NBA right now.
Him and Dame's had the best years of their careers, and it's like they're not in consideration because they're probably missing the playoffs. Well, Dame definitely is, but Luka is in danger of missing the postseason as well. So, yeah, like you said, top-end talent. That's why I know Embiid really wants this award, because I know he knows that, there are a lot of guys that are going to keep stepping up the ladder. Like, I'm mad my Tatum agenda died. Like, it's been dead for like over a month, like almost 2 months now. And I was really pushing that like crazy, but I had to get real with myself.
I was pushing an insane agenda earlier in the season, man. I was pushing D-Book agendas because of the carry job that he was doing before he got injured.
It was deserved, low-key. Can't lie. It was kind of deserved.
But, like, I feel like back then we were, like, way too early, like, top threes. And I think I was the only guy who even said D-Book's name. And there were a lot of guys who were candidates at that point, Luka, Tatum, obviously, Embiid, Jokic, Giannis. Everybody was up there back then. It was a bit bigger of a race. But, yeah, D-Book, it's like he came back from his injury, and all of a sudden, you're playing with KD. And
Kevin Durant.
No matter how good he is, you're playing with KD, man. It's like Embiid's case honestly died last year when they traded for James Harden. Because when you're integrating a new player of that caliber, there's going to be a little bit of growing pains. And because they didn't add Harden and immediately get like 10 times better, then it's like, oh, he has James Harden now and the team's not like absurd. He can't be the MVP. And that was one of the main things that kind of killed his case last season. So, it's, maybe it's kind of good that D-Book wasn't like in number 1, number 2 this year, because that might have killed his case and I would have been upset.